Oh, that's gloomy background. Hold on.
Oh, God, I'm getting a bit stuck. Right then. Ooh. People are coming in. Here they come. Here they come.
Oh, we're
Whee!
live already. Oh, hello.
Everyone.
I'm not going to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening,
Good
because I'm
day.
not.
Good day.
Good day. Good day.
So here we are, folks. We're gonna have a little discussion about horseshoes this evening. Should be fun. Should be fun. Hopefully we've got somebody who can chat to us about it. Maybe there's a farrier or two, but well, probably not though. But it would be nice if there was, but maybe not. Anyway, here we are. Here's Garry and here's me, and we are who have we got coming in? We've got Darren Robinson, we got Becky Callahan, Dom, Helga, Holly, Yolanta, Julie. There's people coming in all over. Right, tell us where you're viewing from. Tell us where you're watching from. We haven't. It's quite interesting, really, because obviously when you do things like this and you do a little bit of research and stuff, and you think, oh, I found a couple of photos I didn't know existed, which I have, so I'll show you this evening. Right. Julie says she's viewing from Mallorca. Holly is from Nova Scotia. Very good. Excellent. Marvelous. Well, it's good to see you people. So this evening, we're going to be looking at whether we think metal shoes are justified or not. Well, we know the answer to that, really, but there are an awful lot of people out there who still think that metal shoes are needed. Sandra's tuning in from Czech. Hi, Sandra. So we're going to discuss it. And with you being here with us, we can all have a discussion about it as well. Do I look really dark to you? I think the lights aren't particularly bright. You can see me, though. That's the most important thing.
Yes, you'll do.
I'll do. So what have you
You'll
been up
do.
to? What have you been up to, Garry, today?
Well, early start was work. Woke up early, so I thought, crack on. Then I went to have a cuddle with my donkey and my horses, which is lovely. Then breakfast, then more work, and then I decided to go on a bike ride for an hour and a half.
Very good.
Yes,
That's amazing. Well done you.
I did. I think it was nearly 12 kilometers. So starting small with my good lady wife. That was very enjoyable. Then came back and did more work.
Yeah, and I've been working all day.
Have you been out of your office yet today?
No.
No, I didn't.
No, I've been working all day today. It's been a worky day, as it always is for me. We have Darren Robertson, who is from Sydney in Australia, and he is the designer of Blue Pegasus shoes. I've heard of those. I've seen those. I've never used them, but I have seen them. Are those, Darren, the plastic ones with the tabs that you stick on with Velcro? Are those the ones? Am I right in thinking that those are the correct ones? Right. So without further ado, I think we should just get into it, Garry. Shall we? Shall we get into it? Right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep, all good.
Everybody can see our screen. All right. Well, let's go then. Let's get into tonight's webinar. And we do the usual thing. If you've watched lots of our webinars now, you'll know the routine. So stick with us because we're going to do facts first. You can go and make yourself a cup of coffee when we talk about who we are. All right, here we go then. It is Happy October. Oh my God, I cannot believe how quick this year has flown by. But the last 18 months has flown by. So quickly it's flown by. October. So as usual, shall we do it today is the day and find some facts for this day in history? So Sigourney Weaver, you know who Sigourney Weaver is? The actress.
Yes.
The actress from the Alien films, Gorillas in the Mist, was born on this day in 1949. She's 20 years older than me. I don't know why that surprised me when I found that out. So I'm 54, so that makes her 74. My God. I don't know why that surprised me. Dear Sigourney Weaver. Oh my God. Aliens. It's got to be one of the most formative films that I watched when I was a kid. Terrified me, but I flipping loved it. The microwave oven was patented today by US inventor Percy Spencer in 1945. What do they call a microwave in Welsh?
It's probably something like ping.
It's called a poppety ping.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that. I was a guess.
There is actually, I think, according to my Welsh speaking Welsh friend, there is another term for it, but they do actually use poppety ping. Rachel Briffers just said poppety ping.
Poppity ping.
Poppety ping. I love that. The musical Cats begins a run of nearly 18 years on Broadway in 1982. Did you ever go and see Cats?
No, I didn't. No.
I didn't go and see Cats. I wanted to.
Never had the pleasure.
It ran for years in the West End in London. It did, and then it toured around the country, and of course it toured all over the world. But an amazing musical on all accounts. And there's always a national day, isn't there? So should we find out what national day there is today?
Go on then.
It's American Touch Tag Day. That's me running off.
Oh.
Because you're just about to tag me. Boop. Yeah. So basically, if you want to get outside and have some fun with your kids and go and play that lovely old playground school game of touch tag, quick, get out now because it's touch tag day. Tell your kids, off you go. Unless you're like us, where it's now 8:15 at night, it's getting dark. All right, then. This is the time for everybody who knows exactly who we are and have seen this a million times before to pop off and put the kettle on if you haven't already. Garry, who is HMIS?
HMIS is the Hoofing Marvellous International School of Horse and Hoof Care. And that's us.
Yay!
And what do? We teach naturally balanced horse and hoof care.
Fantastic.
And where do we do it? Well, all over the world, which is amazing. In-person workshops in the UK and soon to be elsewhere, and the online foundation course and 2-year training program to all over the world.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's available online, and we also have now, which has taken us amazing amount of time, but it's finally with us. For those that have joined our courses, they now have access with the mobile app, which is amazing.
They do.
New.
They do, and I said when I sent the email out for this webinar, I said there's some exciting news coming up. Now, we're not going to give it away in this webinar, are we, Garry? Because we've still got it under covers at the moment, but it is quite an exciting development for us. It's an exciting route that we're taking, but we think that from all of our experience over the many years that we've been doing this, that the way that we are going to design what's coming up next is very much needed. So you need to be keeping an eye on what's happening with the HMIS, the HMI School and Hoofing Marvellous over the next month. I'd say it will be out in a month, I reckon, but it's going to be quite transformative. That's the only tip I'm going to give you.
You're a tease.
I am. All right. Okay. So who are we? We are schoolhmi.com. And that means we are the HM International School of Horse and Hoof Care, because we do our teaching now to people all over the world. And Garry and I are of all the people that are going through our online courses at the moment. They're from all over the world, and it's really brilliant when we get on our group calls, and we'll have a group call and we'll be having, somebody from Australia, somebody from New Zealand, America, the UK, anywhere in Europe, Germany, wherever, and they all come onto a call and they all tell Garry and I initially why they're doing the course and what they're there for. And you know something, it's a slightly different story, but it's got the same theme. It's always got the same theme. Same themes where these people are looking for answers. They're looking for, because they're always searching for answers and they never quite get there. They've got problems with their horses' hooves and they just don't quite fix them. And that's all the same thing. And then suddenly it is a bit like a, as they see the light. And then they see the light, and that light is in the form of a big logo called HM International School or Hoofing Marvellous. Finally, everything is brought together in one package, because there are hoof trimming courses out there and there are equine courses out there, but there's nobody really doing this entire package when it comes to horse and hoof care, natural horse and hoof care. And they may say they are, but we can tell you they aren't, because we know what we're offering and it is incredible. All right, shall we move on? Are you ready? Are you ready? Sorry, Darren, that's a female. That I should have perhaps put a chap up there as well going, hello, because there's lots of chaps that are joining us this evening. Okay, so is there any justification for using metal shoes or any fixed appliance if the goal is healing and recovery? So it's going to be interesting to hear what Darren has to say. He said they are not plastic, they are polyurethane direct replacement for steel. Okay, so that'll be really interesting. What we're going to look at tonight is why use a metal shoe. We are going to look at why do wild horses not need shoes, and do horses like being shod? Now that's a kind of emotive-y, apart from the fact this is all emotive anyway, but that is a like, because first of all, they are sentient beings, but are we allowed to think in terms of them liking or unliking something? Or are we just doing it for the best interests for the horse? If the horse could speak, would the horse say, that's not in my best interest? Or would they say it is in my best interest? That is an interesting topic. We're going to look a little bit at history there, because history basically is responsible for what has happened to our horses' feet. You can't deny it, can't get away from it. We're going to have a little bit of look at the hoof anatomy and function. We're not going to go into a massive webinar about that. That can come in the future. And in fact, if you go to our schoolhmi.com website, there's loads of free webinars there, and we've done laminitis and we've looked at the anatomy in laminitis. We've done all sorts of things. There are an absolute ton of information for you free on our website, so hot foot it over there when you get the opportunity. And then we're going to look at alternative approaches which I haven't mentioned other glue-ons, but we are talking about not permanently fixed appliances for the alternative approaches. All right, so why use a metal shoe? Let's go straight into that. What do you think would be, before I go on to this slide, what do you think would be the first thing, or one of the very top things that somebody might say is the reason for horses to use any fixed appliance, a metal shoe or any fixed appliance? What would be the top thing? What do you think, Garry?
My top one that comes to mind would be lameness. Okay,
so it comes to the point when horses are footy, aren't they? So we stick a shoe on to stop them feeling footy. That isn't the top search result when you look in Google, because Google is so interesting. When you put a search in there, it will bring up the top thing that people search for and people are confused about. So good old Google, shall we go and have a look? Google says it reduces wear and tear. This is what people think. This is the top reason. There's loads of justifications for stuff. Oh yeah, but the top reason on Google is when you say why use horseshoes, the top reason is reduced wear and tear. Should we read that? It says wear and tear on hooves can lead to cracks and chips. Horses that have naturally soft or brittle hooves may experience increased wear and tear without shoes. Shoes can also prevent damage that can occur due to moist conditions. This, and I chopped it out, but this was actually on a veterinary site. Okay, so this is what people are being told. So if you're told this and you don't critically think about it and you don't delve into it any deeper than that, you then go, well, it's because the horse has wear and tear. Darren says the hoof grows 10 millimeters a month, but farriers only trim off it in 6 weeks. It really just depends, to be fair. And it depends, there is an average, but the growth rate, of course, will depend on the size of the hoof. And of course, it also depends on the age of the animal. And it also depends on how much that animal is working and how much wear and tear it's going. I remember many years ago, we published an article in the Barefoot Horse magazine, which I haven't got here with me tonight, but we published an article about 2 drafty horses that were carriage horses, and they joined in on a wagon trail, if you like, across the United States from, I don't know if it was east to west or west to east, but they went straight across the states, and with quite a few others. They were doing this big journey, and his 2 horses were barefoot, and they were pulling a wagon, and every other horse there was shod. And the reason they were shod was because the overriding excuse was because the horses will wear their feet off. And yet these 2 horses that he took that were towing every day, because they went hours every day, didn't need that protection. Not only did they not need that protection, but they also needed to be trimmed. Every so often, they had to actually trim any excess that was there. Now, that's a bizarre little oxymoron. Now, what are we getting from that? Are we getting, if we say that to people, we get things like, oh, it's just those particular horses didn't need it. They had healthier feet. Well, why did they have healthier feet? Or those horses were, I don't know, 101 kind of excuses, but they were all drafty types. And there were some horses of the same breed of this horse too, but they were all shod. And nobody could quite understand it. And funnily enough, only a few people came to chat to him about it. He made quite a few friends, obviously, a few came. Not everybody came and went, oh, it's almost like a thing that we don't talk about because it makes us feel a little bit uncomfortable now that we know what metal shoes can do to horses. It can make us feel a little bit uncomfortable. But this whole wear and tear business, and that horses wear their feet off on roads, where do you think that came from? Why do people think, and this goes back to what you said originally, for the reason that they're putting shoes on, why do human beings think that horses are wearing their foot off? Incidentally, everybody watching this evening, after you've watched this webinar, or while you're watching, can you just pop on to Facebook or Instagram or wherever is your tipple of social media and go and see if you can find us those bloody nubs, because we've never found them. In all the years that we've been doing this, and it's not slightly a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's true, I've never seen them. I've never seen a bloody nub on a horse because it's worn its foot off. And there's a good reason for that, right? But what happens? What does the human connect with wearing the foot off? What is that thing in the middle that's indicating to them that this horse is wearing its foot off, or that they think it's wearing its foot off? And that is, Garry,
lameness.
Yeah. or
Soreness.
footiness,
Soreness. Yeah,
soreness.
footiness. Yeah.
So their
Soreness. Soreness.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're footsore, right? They are a little bit footsore, and I think I've got that as my. Oh no, that I've got that as. It's coming up in a minute. Sore. So they're sore. Now they think they're sore because they've worn their foot off. Because they associate themselves thinking, wow, you know what? If I went barefoot and I took my shoes off and I ran that distance constantly every day, gosh, my feet would get sore too. And then we put the shoe on. And then what happens is that they get this, your favorite saying of all time. They get the random.
Oh, random rewarding. Yes.
They get the random reward of
they
the
get
fact
a fix. Yeah. They get the random reward that all of a sudden they've done something and the problem has been fixed. So when you randomly reward something in any animal behavior, it becomes more ingrained, whether it is truly helping or not. So yeah, you can actually get into really bad habits as an animal with random rewarding as well as really good.
And if we and we are animals and we are getting random rewarded, right?
Oh, we are, for sure.
Because footsore horsey, and I want to ride this. Not footsore horsey now, or apparently not, because he's now put some shoes on and I can ride him. Woohoo! And this even is more confirmed in me when I take the shoes off in between and he can't even walk across a piece of concrete, let alone anything that's remotely rough and stony. So no, put the shoes back. It's so much better because my horse clearly is better. Some part of that disconnect has gone. I'm not going to think about why my horse is sore, because why would your horse now still be sore if the reason that you put your put horseshoes on in the first place was because the horse was footsore because it was wearing its foot off? When he puts the shoes back on, surely he's not wearing his foot anymore, right? Right? So surely when the shoes come off, the foot should have recovered because he's not worn his foot off. But it hasn't recovered, has it? Because it wasn't anything about wearing the foot off. The problem with the foot soreness is nothing to do with wearing the foot off. It's to do with the problems that are going on inside the foot. And those problems, sadly, are coming from the person who owns that animal. But we're hiding it. Okay, let's move on. So I said to Google, what about traction? So Google said shoeing horses changes how their foot interacts with the ground. We know that. We do. Like with humans, the shoes provide better grip with the ground and limit how much the foot slides. This is a top result in Google. Okay. This allows the horse to push off from the ground more easily and have a better quality of movement. That was on March the 29th, 2023. Let's say you're a new horse owner. Let's say you wanted to get into horses all your life and suddenly you've just got some money behind you and you can afford it and there's a livery yard down the road or a barn and you're like you've seen this horse, you're looking in all the ads and oh my God, you're going to buy it. And the first thing you do is go, oh, I've got to get a farrier. Oh, right. Well, I'll have a look online and I'll start. And then darling, look what Google says. It says that shoes provide better grip. So we better get shoes put on because it's going to provide better grip. And it limits how much the foot slides. Wow. Is that our experience, Garry?
No, and people are really quite shocked when they come on our foundation course, particularly the in-person ones. We have many cadaver legs that we get through in a year. I think we're up to nearly 800 this year so far. And when we actually have barefoot hooves that have been trimmed correctly, and we put them on the ground and simulate them landing, we push them on a piece of either tarmac or concrete and give them a good old stamp. All of the shod ones slip considerably. All of the barefoot ones do not.
No. And
never ever have we had a shod one, even when those shod ones have got road nails in. They slip on tarmac and concrete. It's for people that come on our workshops and people that are thinking about changing and going barefoot. They come onto our workshops too. That's one of their huge light bulb moments. It really is.
It is, and the whole bit about providing better grip, well, that's not true. And if you've ever gone along a tarmac road with a shod horse going up or down, well, particularly downhill, you can see the skid marks of the metal onto the tarmac, the white marks. You can see them. And I used to ride out with years ago with friends who were shod in the UK when I lived in the UK. And that would always be a problem for them. And then I'd go, oh, I'm just going to canter up this hill, yeehaw, on tarmac, boom. And they'd be like, no, not doing that. No cantering on, no. That's dangerous. It's not dangerous. It's only dangerous if a car comes around the bend, and that's pretty dangerous. But it's not dangerous because my horse is not going to lose his footing and slip and fall over because he's bare and he has natural grip. Whereas everybody that rides a shod horse on anything like smooth tarmac or concrete will tell you, don't canter them because that's mightily dodgy. And plus, not only that, in their heads, they know that extra bit of perhaps that extra bit of concussive forces could cause more of a problem. But we still don't have that connect. And if Google is telling us this, then that in March 29th, 2023, if this is the sort of thing that's being put out, and this allows the horse to push off the ground more easily and have a better quality of movement. How many times have we had clients where the horse has had problems, he's had intermittent shoulder problems, he's playing up, he's not doing well, shoes come off, and the horse is amazing, right? The horse suddenly rids itself of all those issues. It starts doing really, really well. And then one day, just one day, they might be in the arena and they're having a lesson with the trainer, and the trainer pops out those little few words that trainers quite like to do sometimes if they're quite traditional, which is, you know, I think your horse would go better if you shod him. What is that about? And our owners go, you must be joking. The journey I have gone to get this far now with the shoes off, you must be joking. I'm not going back there, not in a million years. So there you go. Steph says, I wouldn't canter on tarmac, shod or unshod. It's absolutely fine. And I'm not talking about cantering downhill, Steph. I'm talking about cantering uphill. But yeah, I used to do it all the time. Not a problem. Me and a bunch of others. Corrective shoeing. What are corrective horse shoes for? Well, shoes improve your horse's balance. That's number one. So number one right there is shoes improve your horse's balance. And they may help, this is also from a veterinary site, prevent gait irregularities. Oh, well, blow me down. That's not good. If there's a horse out there with a gait irregularity, I tell you what we can do. We'll try and fix it with a shoe. In fact, corrective shoeing can compensate for muscle, bone, or hoof issues. Less stress. Running puts considerably pressure on an equine's hooves. I mean, I read this, and when I cannot believe what I'm reading. These are top searches in Google. Is there no wonder we have an epidemic of lameness and problems in the equine world when horse owners are getting onto Google and they're Googling this sort of stuff and it's coming up and telling them that sort of thing? They're just saying, It's going to improve your horse's balance. Pardon? That nothing is going to improve your horse's balance other than its own balanced hooves. And the things that we come across when we see horses that are shod, that's not what we call balance. That's the human's version of balance. That's not the horse's version of balance. And it compensates for muscle, bone, or hoof issues. Well, actually, we see the reverse is what we see. We see that we get atrophy in soft tissues, and we see bones, cartilage turning to bone, and we see joints being hugely affected, and we see terrible hoof issues. So this isn't just this isn't just, well, shoes, use shoes, it's going to fix everything. It is incredible that when we go and search things like this is the sort of stuff that comes up, and there is no wonder, is there, that people come onto our sites when we're talking about barefoot and they lose their heads over this sorts of thing. Okay, so why do wild horses not need shoes? That's a pretty grim picture. I didn't, incidentally, this is just off Google, so you could get this off Google yourselves. I haven't taken that particular photo deliberately. This one says, why do wild horses not need shoes? In the wild, horses don't need anything other than their hooves to protect their feet. Wow, that's fantastic. Their hooves keep growing and are worn down by them running. So that's different to a domesticated horse then, is it? Domesticated horses' feet don't do that then. Right. In the wild, they're mostly running on grass. Really? Have you ever been over to the Great Basin? So the wear and tear occurs over an expanded period of time, and the hooves don't get too short. Golly gosh, what a load of misinformation in there paragraph. Isn't it? It really is.
Very much so.
And then they kind of put that really nasty picture next to it, which is, I don't know why. I just thought because that's what came up. I mean, you look at that picture on the right and you look at it and go, what is going on there? What are we doing? Why are we not recognizing that this horse has got huge laminitic problems and that it needs to have its diet and management sorted out? We've got to stop thinking that we can fix everything by sticking something on the bottom of a horse's foot. And it says here they're mostly running on grass, Right, well, I suggest these people who write these paragraphs should pop over to the Great Basin or even the Eurasian steppes and see what these animals are running on. Darren says, a stallion I met would wear through steel shoes in 3 days, had to be barefoot. But the funny thing with that is, Darren, and we've had this so many times too, is that it's assumed that because the horse is wearing their shoes down to thin razor blades, that they're going to do the same with their foot. But there's a fundamental difference, isn't there, Garry?
There is. The hoof is organic. The metal shoe is not. There are feedback mechanisms in the hoof that actually tell it to grow and replenish when the hoof is naturally worn. That's why we don't see all of those bloody nubs all over the internet when people say that their hoof is going to be worn off. But you can understand that when people see that shoes are being worn thin, that could raise a concern. I get that. But we are the ones that are responsible for our horses. We've got to look that little bit deeper.
We absolutely.
The horses do not wear their feet off.
We have literally fobbed off our horses' health on other people because we have not been able to sort it out, because it's not a very comfortable scenario or a comfortable feeling to know that the problems that your horse is suffering from, the problems that that horse in that picture there is suffering from, all stem from the owner that keeps that horse. And that's not comfortable. That doesn't make anybody feel good, especially if you're in a situation where you feel you can't change things. Although never have we ever gone to any owner, even in the harshest of environments, where in terms of harshest for non-species specific for the horse, where they can't actually make some changes for the better for the health of their horses. Okay, let's move on. Do horses like being shod? Okay. This is an interesting one. So again, this came up in Google. Of 920,000 results with people asking Google if horses like being shod or not. So it came up and said they may not like the process, but they don't hate it either. Right. Horses will feel the force of each hammer blow as nails are driven into their hooves, but they won't experience any discomfort from that sensation going in and out of their hoof wall. Naturally, it is crucial to select a good farrier for the job. Well, that last sentence is a problem. Is a massive problem that we have, it appears, in every corner of the world. It is so variable. It is incredible. Just talking about that last sentence and the getting a good farrier annoys me deeply, because all of them should be good farriers. But what's your definition of a good farrier and what's our definition of a good farrier? But the point is, many times we'll be sent the history of an owner's horse. We'll get to see their x-rays, we get to see pictures of their feet, because we've had a conscientious owner who's been taking photographs all the way through their journey that they've owned their horse. Some of them have ring binders of folders and we're able to go and look at them. And every time this happens and we are shown this information, we watch that horse's foot have angle changes practically every 5 minutes. The pedal bone inside, when they're being x-rayed, it's going like this the whole time. Now, that's not because the horse, his pedal bone is just losing its connection and it's wafting around inside the hoof capsule. That's because the farriers, because it's usually plural, because we have a farrier that stays for a while, they do a few different things, then we have another farrier, or then we have a trimmer, and they're all doing slightly different things. We've got a word for that, or a little phrase for that, and we call that PPT. What's that, Garry?
Personal preference trimming.
Personal preference trimming. And personal preference trimming is wild. It's everywhere. Everybody does it except us. That they are, and the people who do the thing that we do, of course. But PPT, personal preference trimming. So these are people who aren't following any particular constants. They are, some of them have been taught, others are self-taught, but they're following a constant that they've been, well, it's not a constant, but they've been following an arbitrary guideline, such as the widest part of the frog, which is a bit hopeless, really, when you consider that an awful lot of frogs are atrophied and sick and poorly in the domesticated world. So that's not something good that you should follow. And the other thing that they often follow is, or the big thing, is the HPA. That's the hoof pastern axis. In other words, we want to see a nice straight line going up from the toe of the hoof, all the way up the hoof and all the way up the pastern to the fetlock joint. And if we don't see that straight line, then something's going wrong. But the foot is always manipulated to get that straight line. But the problem that we have is that so many horses around the entire world, in every corner of the globe, are suffering from inflammatory processes just because they're in a domestic environment and they're being fed all the wrong things and they're being given too much grass and they're being kept unnaturally. And so what happens is those feet naturally start to have problems, and so does the body. But that is kind of ignored, really. It's not recognized. So they see problems going on in the feet, and then the farrier will alter the foot to try and get it to be within a certain box of angles, to be within a certain range of angles. Now, that's a problem. That's a problem, because you've got to remember that this is just a foot capsule. This is a hoof capsule. This is the epidermis. This is not something that is fed. It's not got any vasculature, but it does have feedback. So it's wrong of us to think that it's dead and that it's useless. But what happens is they manipulate this hoof capsule, but everything that's inside is attached to it, whether it's laminitic or not, whether you've got stretch or not, everything is attached within that capsule. And so whenever we move things, we move the bony column inside, and we see it over and over again. These horses with all these different angle changes between each trim. It can happen between each trim, each shoeing. You know, you'll get a horse that's been shod not so well. They get another farrier in. He's like, that's rubbish. I'll put on a better shoeing package and I'll wedge it up. And it may look neater to the eye, but now what has he just done? He's fiddled again. These feet are just being constantly fiddled and meddled with, all because people can't make their mind up, and it's something called PPT. So do they like being shod? Well, let's just have a quick look at the disadvantages of shoes. Now look at this. Now, are we talking about whether he likes it in his brain, as in, oh, I like it or I don't, or are we saying whether the body is telling us whether we like it? Anybody that has skin problems, anybody that reacts to, has IBS or tummy problems when they eat certain foods, anybody like that is going to say, my stomach doesn't like it, my body doesn't like it. We don't tend to think of that with horses. We just think of whether the horse likes it or not, or is being bothered by it or not. But in actual fact, you have to look at what's going on in the body. Lee says, hi, Lee. Lee says, rather like Chinese foot binders altering women's feet to suit their preferential look. Yes. And also their gait, because it changed their gait, didn't it? Made them sort of walk very much like this. And they found that they thought that was dainty. So we've only just got to look at this foot here, and we can see instantly, boom, it's an unpigmented foot, and yet we've got loads of black all around where the nail holes are. Now those are infections. They are fungal infections. They are bacterial infections. You can't deny it. You can't run away from it. You can't pretend that it's just oxidation, because it doesn't look like that. These are problems. That foot doesn't like what is happening, and yet we ignore it. So let's have a look at the disadvantages of shoeing. So stress. Horseshoes can cause your horse's hoof additional stress that can damage the hoof or the foot. We know this. We do know this. And yet in Google a minute ago was saying that shoes reduce stress. Oh, poor horse owners. They must be ripping their hair out. They must be ripping their hair out. Nail damage. Well, we can see it here for everyone to see. The nails used in shoeing can cause damage to the hoof wall and tissue. So one of the things now that happens when it's funny, because we follow trends, don't we, Gary? When we're going on our cadaver workshops, we can see trends happening in shoeing because we use so many cadaver hooves and we get quite a lot of shod hooves. So we can start to see trends happening. And trends such as putting toe clips on the front of horses' feet. So now we're putting side clips on front. They're not back shoes, but they're making front shoes with side clips instead of toe clips. So that's one thing. Leaving the nails proud. Instead of putting instead of having a shoe that's got a road nail in it. So we leave the nails proud, because that'll give them a bit more traction, without even thinking that actual point where you're leaving the nails proud is meant to be passive. Okay. Another thing that we see a lot nowadays is the use of copper nails. We see it all the time. Copper nails are being used everywhere. Now, initially, I think owners got charged extra for copper nails, but now it's a bit more common. So farriers are using copper nails everywhere. Having spent years telling us that nails don't infect horses' feet, we've now gone down the route of using copper nails. why are we using copper nails? Do you know, guys? Do you know in the chat why copper nails are now being used? Let's take a quick swig of my coffee. And we see loads of them. It's spread, didn't it? We'd only see them in the home counties, and then it started spreading, and now it's like in every corner of the UK where we do our workshops, we see them. So the reason for using a copper nail is because when they come in contact with bacteria or microbes or certain microbes, it kills them. So there's an admission, if ever there was one, that there are infections in the horse's foot from nail holes. However, there's a slight problem with using copper nails, because as they're in the foot, the nail and the foot don't kind of, they don't kind of get on particularly well. And that causes holes. The bigger holes might not look like a big hole to you, but it's a bigger hole as the nail is moving around in that space. And unless the bacteria are actually in contact with the copper, it doesn't kill them off. Okay? It doesn't kill them off. It does not kill them. So they can be wafting around in the vicinity of the copper nail, but as long as they're not touching it, they're still going to be in there. So that's a problem. So it's not fixed the solution, has it? It's not a solution. It's not fixed the problem. And Pollitt and Hampson did some research. I think it was in 2019 or 20, where one of the first pieces of research, not much been done about it, where they looked at how effective copper nails were, and they did a scale from 1 to 10 of how bad the horse's foot was in response to the nails in terms of infections around the nail holes, and 1 being good, 10 being not so good. And what do you think they found, Garry?
It's 10.
They found loads up towards the 10, more above 5 and towards the 10 than there were below, which indicated to them that if you extrapolate that out, that there's millions of horses out there walking around on the earth with infected feet because of the nails, because of the nail holes. And they did that by looking at a certain criteria of the shape of the holes and the amount of black that was around the hole. So they looked at copper nails, and they couldn't say whether they thought there was a massive significant difference or a significant difference, because they said that more research had to be done, as indeed that is always the get out clause oftentimes on research papers. And of course, you would have to do more research. But what they did say at the very end was that what they hadn't taken into account was that there could be products, or there are products that could be put on the horse's foot, or even just in the horse's vicinity, or standing around on bedding, etc., because some of it often is medicated. They couldn't tell what kinds of reactions that was going to have with the copper, and whether that was going to be good or bad. And they said that there was more research needed. So it kind of just smacks to me like we're trying to go down what feels like the easiest route, because the hardest route is fixing the diet. That's the hardest route. So the easiest route is doing this. But in fact, it's not the easiest route, is it? Because it causes more problems for a horse's feet. And yet people, even when they see that, they would say, no, don't have it. Lameness. Badly shod hooves can cause your horse pain and also lameness. Well, it's not just badly shod hooves. It's just shod hooves, because it can cause contraction at the back of the foot. And it does. In fact, shoes do always cause contraction. And we've got a plethora of examples of how that harms the horse's foot. And we're often talking about the back of the foot, aren't we? The soft part of the caudal part of the back of the foot, which is where the frog is, the digital cushion, which is the where the horse loads and where he needs that to be not painful at all. And it needs to be very functional. And sadly, with most shod horses, it ain't too functional. All right, so we've looked at that, whether horses like being shod. So we're talking about their body, not just so much their brain. When we think about that, let's think about what's happening to the body, and let's think about what the body is telling us. And we've got more pictures that we can show you. This is the photo I was talking about. So let's go back in time. let's go back quickly in time and look at the ancient beginning. So horseshoeing can be traced back to ancient civilizations. We know that, such as the Romans, who used leather or rawhide shoes to protect their horses' hooves because they were having problems, right? They were causing issues. So they started doing that. And the reason they were causing issues is because these horses were starting to be kept unnaturally. But that disconnect was never, that connect was always a disconnect. It was never kind of put together as that was the reason why. In Asia, horses were fitted with early forms of metal horseshoes as far back as 500, 600 AD. Now, I have to tell you that this is still not a completely done deal. They don't 100% know all of this. We know that Genghis Khan, and he was around the 12th, 13th century, the Khans, that he had barefoot horses everywhere. Some people say that Genghis Khan shod his horses, but there's not a lot of evidence out there. So it's a bit difficult. And as you can see here in this photo here, there are no nails being used. This is a bit of metal that has been bent around the horse's foot. And what they'd started to do was use leather straps. And in the Roman times, they used leather sandals as well, but they wore down. In medieval Europe, the use of metal horseshoes became more prevalent in Europe during the Middle Ages. And you can see here that they've got all this funny shaping on it. This is because they were attaching leather straps to them to try and keep them on. Initially, horseshoes are made of iron and attached to the hooves with leather straps. Let's keep moving on. They look more like sort of pixie boots of some. This is this big thing coming up the back here. The development of the anvil in the 12th century allowed for more advanced shoemaking techniques. So around about the Renaissance, so we're talking 14th century upwards, aren't we, when we talk about the Renaissance? During the Renaissance period, farriery, the craft of shoeing horses, became more refined with the use of nails to secure horseshoes. So now they started to use nails. So they now start, and let's face it, the shape can't really change much. So now they started to use nails. Horseshoes became more standardized and widespread as horse-drawn transportation increased in importance. What we do know is that the peasants couldn't really afford it way back, but the kings and queens could. And it was partly seen as an indication of wealth, because I could have my horse shod frequently. So I must be quite wealthy. Kings, and that's nice shiny shoes with that clip-clop sound that they used to make on the cobbles. This was seen as a mark of wealth. In the Industrial Revolution then came along, and in the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th centuries brought advancements in metalworking. So this was allowing for the mass production now of standardized horseshoes. And horseshoes started to play a crucial role in the development of transportation, agriculture, and industry because things were developing fast. We needed horses to be able to do stuff for us. And some of these horses were suffering because they had poorly feet. And then we put them in a horseshoe and it fixed everything. Well, that's what we thought. But then we realized that that isn't actually what was going on at all. Let's just whiz back to Edward Coleman. So Edward Coleman in the late 1700s was a guy who became the first head of the London Veterinary College. The Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons was born, and he became the head of that said college. And he actually had his own shoes. He'd patented his own shoes. And I haven't written him up here, but there was a maverick vet at that time who Edward Coleman didn't get on with because he was a bit annoying, and he was called Bracy Clark. And Bracy Clark was a vet, and he went out and he found out that horseshoes were shaping horses' feet in not a very good way. They were affecting the natural shaping of the horses' feet. And he said, it's not doing them any good. It's actually causing them to have problems. And Edward Coleman and all his cronies kind of went, no, get rid of him, shove him out. Maverick vet, doesn't know what he's talking about. Of course shoes are good. Of course shoes are good. We're keeping industry going. It's difficult, isn't it? Because there we are, we've got these horses in shoes and they seem to be able to do their work. We take them out of the shoes and they seem to be crippled. So we're forgetting the one thing, that we have a huge responsibility towards these very sensitive and specialized creatures, which is that we need to understand why they are footsore. Darren says steel only became cheap after the railways crossed America. Iron shoes wore out in a week. Because they needed now to have composites. So this is what's happening, Darren. Modern times. So today, horseshoe design and materials have evolved significantly, and horseshoes are typically made of steel now, aluminium, or other alloys, and they're pretty. Look, that's pretty. They're pretty. I don't know how long that color would stay on while the horse is running around. There's a growing interest, though, nowadays in natural hoof care, with some horse owners opting for barefoot trimming instead of traditional shoeing. So that was a quick whiz through history. Nothing's much changed, but the biggest problem that we have is the fact that we are still ignoring the reason why we put shoes on. But let's face it, Garry, if people are going over to Google and they're Googling the benefit of horseshoes and they're saying it stops wear and tear, it improves traction, stops them slipping, what were the other things it said? It's a much better, it helped gait, it sorts out gait abnormalities. It reduces stress. Wow. So let's look at this for a moment. We're not going to go into the big in depth about hoof anatomy and function in this webinar because we just won't have enough time, and I'm trying to get through it without being a huge webinar. But here is an interesting situation, and this is in the UK. So these are this horse was being treated by a UK vet and a UK farrier. The bottom right picture is what his foot looked like when he recovered with a barefoot specialist. The three other photos were what were being done to his foot because of a problem that he had. And that problem, of course, was laminitis. Now, when the horse's foot sore and they put a shoe on, the horse is laminitic. He's got inflammatory processes going on. But once he got to this stage, he'd gone a long way down that road. So he'd been sore for a while, and he had the rings, and he had loads of other little symptoms that were indicating that we're just going a bit too far now with the diet and the management. But it wasn't stopped. Then boom, everything, the bottom falls out of the owner's world, literally, because this horse now is really compromised, really sore. And now we're like, well, what do? We've got to do something. And this was what happened. So yes, that bottom left picture is a shoe that has been reversed and nailed on backwards, and they've completely taken the toe off. Do you want to say anything about this picture, Garry? I mean, dear me.
I think the picture says it all, don't you think?
Oof.
And it's so hard for owners, isn't it? We've got a hard job trying to help owners and get this information out there, hence why we do so many webinars and free help and advice. It's really not difficult. What we've got to do is we've got to go back and start treating these animals as such. And that, I have to say, is really not complicated. What their basic requirements are very simple. That's what we've got to do to change the world for all of our equines and all of those owners out there that are getting all of this information that you've shown us this evening off of the internet. There's so much misinformation out there. Is it any wonder that our amazing, majestic animals that we have in our lives are struggling? It's horrendous. And I say it on the workshop, and this might be a little bit over the top. We are supposed to be the most intelligent beings on this planet. Why are we doing this to our horses? Look at that picture. Why are those three images there? What we should be seeing is the one in the bottom right all over the world. That's what we should be seeing. A picture of health. That's what we should be seeing.
And just because this is something that we've done for hundreds of years doesn't make it right. We did it for hundreds of years because we had foot sore horses with laminitis that was never sorted out. And so the excuses were abound, of which Google will tell you there's plenty of them. But the ultimate part of this whole thing is the fact that the horses haven't got healthy feet. And yet these horses are then shod and ridden and do a lot ridden, you know, and they're not riding on particularly healthy feet at all. But this, under the hoof anatomy and function part, what part is functioning on the, can you see my arrow here?
Yeah.
What part is functioning on the front of this foot? What is it that makes these people that do this sort of thing think that that is okay to remove this entire section of toe wall here with no consequence? No consequence at all. This apparently it's okay to do because it doesn't matter, because it's just a bit of dead horn, right? Don't think like that. And don't think like that if you do something to one part of the foot, you've heard me say this before if you've watched these webinars, that another part of the foot doesn't know about it and the brain doesn't know about it. They all know what's going on down there. But this is a problem. This is a problem because the horse has 3 or 4 pillars of support constantly, always 3 or 4 pillars of support, 2 at the back, 2 in the heels, and either 1 or 2, depending on how symmetrical a horse's foot is, at the toe. Sometimes it's just either side, and other times it's on one side. It's more common to be on one side. You take that away, you take that pillar of support away, you have completely affected that horse's everything. I can't even go into everything that you have affected, but a lot. And then you go and put a shoe on like this, you stop the back of the foot from working normally, you don't take the bars away, look, just leave those, and you put nails in and you make that whole area of foot hyperactive when it actually should be passive. It's a, can I use the words? I'm going to use the words. Be warned. I'm about to swear mildly, but it's a shit show out there. It's a shit show. Renee says, I have jumper clients who swear by the studs and plugs screwed into the bottom of shoes at competitions. They swear it stops the slipping on coarse grass. What have you found? Well, what we found is when you're in the barefoot world, here's the issue here. If you've got all that stuff going on the internet, and you've got all these people who are saying they swear blind by studs, they're all talking to each other and going, yeah, I see, absolutely. Have you tried barefoot? I try slips. Oh, that's terrible. How many of them actually have tried it on a really healthy horse with healthy feet? Because what we find, Renee, is that we find in the barefoot world that there are people eventing, trekking, endurance, jumping on grass, on sand, on absolutely every surface you can think of, and those horses are more sure-footed. Are they ever going to slip? If you push a horse to its limits and that horse isn't fit enough, because you've got all that to contend with as well, and the rider to contend with as well, you've got all of that going on. Will a horse slip? Of course it will. But usually, and this kind of goes a bit hand in hand with people that go down the barefoot route, is that they're a bit more cognizant of the effects that they are having on their horse. And so they're a bit more cognizant of the effects of the tack and the riding and all of those sorts of things. So consequently, those type of owners find that when they do these quite high impact sports, and they don't slip any more than a shod horse even with studs on. In fact, we've only got to really look, haven't we, at what's going on now in the show jumping world, where everybody is literally turning themselves inside out, because we have these top European show jumpers who are going barefoot and going, oh, our horses are winning, to the point where we've now got people that have been into show jumping for donkey's years, who are starting to think, oh, I might try doing that as well. Renee says, I agree with you. I think the plug studs actually cause more ligament problems. Yeah. Who was I can't think of her name. It's gone in my head, things with an H. We had a lady who published an article in the Barefoot Horse magazine some years ago, and she did a thesis on it. She actually went and did her thesis on looking at road studs and the effect of road studs. And it's like run for the hills, because the effects these pinpoint pressures have in completely the wrong areas of the foot, in these areas that are meant to be passive, it's not good news. It's not good news. Okay, let's move on. So what shoeing can hide? So again, we're looking at the anatomy of the foot, because we're actually looking at the foot. It says deep-seated fungal infections around the nail holes, stretch white line shows long-term chronic laminitis. So this was a riding horse from a riding school, and she was got rid of because she was knocking on a little bit, not that old really, but wasn't doing very well, wasn't particularly brilliant for people to ride. Well, you've only got to take the shoes off to see why, haven't you? She's got a stretch white line, and if we go to the next one, there's the stretch in the white line, and she's also got the telltale signs of laminitis, a stretch white line, often with blood present. And more blood at the toe is also part and parcel to do with problems with those shoes. It is an issue. There are forces at play all in this area here that shouldn't be, and this is what we are doing. This is what we're trying to hide, and oftentimes what will come along and this bit will be chopped off, so we can't see that we've got this big amount of stretch. We can't see it. So if we can't see it, it must not be there. But this is a problem. So this horse is laminitic. It's got poorly frogs. It's got nasty infections all around its nail holes. It's got a stretch. It's got blood in the white. Whatever way you look at it, you can't pretty that up, can you? You can't go, it's all right. You can't. Whichever way you look at that, I would love to have gone back to the people at that riding school and gone, you know, this mare was laminitic, right? Oh, no, nobody ever told us that. Well, don't go looking on Google, is what I'd say. Becky Callahan said, going barefoot is just the start. The management is also a plus, as your horse is living a more natural life with freedom and choice rather than being shut in a step. Everything, isn't it, Becky? It is the entire thing. And like Garry said, it's not difficult. What makes it difficult are the humans and the way that we keep horses. That's what makes it difficult. Am I still with you? Or
also, I think as well, just to add to that, there are many horse owners that come along and talk to us, and when we ask them, when you're there with your hoof care professional or your farrier, when you're there and they're doing, do you ask what's going on in the foot? Do you have this open dialogue? It's almost like right, I need my horse shod. That person comes and does that, and the responsibility for what then goes on with the feet, I have passed on to someone else that knows better than I. And when you actually ask the question and you say, well, look what's underneath, and we've done it ourselves, haven't we? We go to clients, and very often it's in quite the horse is in quite a dire situation, and we take the shoes off, and we talk to them about everything that is going on within that foot. And their first question is, well, why didn't my farrier or hoof care professional tell me this? This is the industry that has made or even molded the owner. I suppose what we're doing is we're trying to reverse that, get the owners to actually take that responsibility, ask more questions, do their own research. Because let's face it, that stretch white line, if you don't look what's underneath when your farrier is there putting new shoes on and you don't ask those questions, every 6 to 8 weeks, that's going to be covered up.
And the thing is, this is a welfare issue, guys. This is a welfare issue. This horse was lamanitic, and yet it was being used in a riding stable. I mean, they're all lamanitic. That's rarely we come across a domestic horse that's not on our books that isn't. If it's not on our books, it's likely to be lamanitic. This is a welfare issue. This is not right. This should not be happening. And the reason it's happening is because owners don't know. Owners aren't educated enough. Owners aren't educated enough. And this horse here could have ended up like this horse here in an acute stage, about to be put to sleep until, you know, the barefoot trimmer in the shining chaps came galloping along to save the horse that had the knowledge of how to do it, to do with diet and management. So this horse could have become this horse. But they got rid of it because she wasn't doing so brilliantly well. Poor horse. This is a welfare issue. And we're covering it up, pretending it is welfare when horses are still suffering and continually suffering. Okay, so let's have a look at this. This was one of a shod hooves that we had on one of our cadaver workshops. This is the same hoof cut in half. We do this thing when we're on a workshop where we cut the shoe in half, and then we leave that side alone, and then we naturally trim the other side. We try and choose one that will look reasonably okay. And you can see here, it's not what you would classically say is lamanitic. So even though it has got a few rings on the outside of its hoof, it's not having severe lamanitic problems. I don't think this horse was particularly old, but you can see here where this shoe is. You can see, can't you, that the shoe, this is the part that should be on the ground. This is the waterline, that bright white bit. This is the hardest part of the hoof, and that's the bit that the horse naturally walks on. We didn't make that up. That's not our PPT. That's not made up by us. That's Mother Nature's decision, not ours. And that's what she decided. So what happens is that the farrier comes along and puts a shoe on. You can see they've set the shoe back. Now this horse had quite a bit of concavity in his sole, but there's plenty that don't. And that shoe then, the size of that shoe then can put pressure in places that it shouldn't. And it's metal, so it's going to put pressure in places that it shouldn't. And I'm not going to blow that up because I'm going to lose it. But if this here, you might be able to see, has got the horn tubules here where it's getting this direct pressure. The sole horn tubules, they are, oh hell, let's just blow it up for you. You can see that they are in a bit of disarray. Can you see that? That's through compression. Oop. Okay. Am I back? Am I back? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
So same foot, same horse, but look now, look at this horse, because it's been trimmed, this half of its foot has been trimmed naturally. Look what's on the ground. Mother Nature put in a lovely big fibrocartilaginous cushion in there called the digital cushion, which is more than capable to withstand the weight and forces that horse is going to put upon it. I can tell you something right now, folks. You shoe, that takes away the ability for the back of the foot to do what it's meant to do, and that affects everything right there, straight out of the gate. That affects everything, the circulatory system, the biology of everything that's going on in there. Everything gets affected, the soft tissues, the joints, the whole kit and caboodle, because we know that by the time the forces get to the bones inside, that the hoof wall has dissipated an awful lot of energy by the time it even reaches the inside. Then when it reaches the inside, the pedal bone itself dissipates an awful lot of energy before it gets to the vascular terminal arch, which is incredibly important and very well protected way down there in P3, because of all of those forces. The foot is more than capable of protecting itself, more than capable. Mother Nature's not going to create something that just wears itself off just doing a few miles down the road every week, and even a lot of miles down the road every week. But we do this. And then the consequence of that is this. So let's take a look. This is the horse's natural shaping, and it's also not just his natural shaping, but that's his natural length. You can't run away from it. Again, you can't pretty it up. No matter how you pretty it up, even if the farrier took that back to where it's meant to be, he wouldn't take the quarter back to be the same, because to be how we've trimmed it, which is following the contours of the hard sole plane, because he'd need it flat, because he's got to put nails in there. So again, immediately you're causing problems with the active and passive wear patterns. But the shoe goes on, it gives that horse extra length. And yet these are the people that talk about biomechanics constantly talking about breakover, constantly talking about, oh, you can't leave a toe long. And there, right there in front of you is an animal who has got a very overly long toe. And he didn't look like he was a particularly bad foot inside, but look at this. Look at it. It gets my goat when they talk about breakover and they talk about lever forces. Which one, if I had to ask you, and if I had to ask some primary school kids that had just been taught a little bit about physics, perhaps a little bit about lever forces, which you can't necessarily apply, incidentally, folks, to living four-legged animals, a piece of wood on a fulcrum with lever forces. But if I said to the kids, which side of this do you think would have more of a lever force on that horse's foot, which bit do you think they'd say? Which bit do you think they'd point to? And yet we're being told that this is better. This is okay. This is all the confusion to do with lever force. Now look over here. So this would be the horse's foot naturally on the ground. Look how much that would take that horse's foot off the ground. And yet this was not a particularly unhealthy foot. It wasn't. This horse could have done very, very well. All horses can do very, very well. But this is probably, goodness knows, this might have been, we think that it's potentially that this was, because it's thoroughbred-esque, and where we get these horses from, they are often off the track, even though these aren't racing plates. Let's have a look at this. Look at this now. What do we see here? Oh, it might be a racing plate, actually. What do we see here? We see a beautifully balanced foot here, following nature's decision to follow the hard sole plane, not ours. And then what do we see over on this side? It's a welfare problem, guys. It is. And we pretty it up and we pretend that it's all okay. No shoeing is equal. No farrier is equal. Oftentimes no trimmer is equal too. And yet they're all out there doing their PPT on horses' feet without really much of a thought about what's going on. Okay. Becky says, my ex-farrier and vet never gave me the correct advice when I asked them over and over. I had to research myself and find the answers. Yeah. And this is where we are. This is why we are doing what we are doing. And without giving an awful lot away, the road that we are moving down now is very much about the owner, getting the owner to understand and take control. But by owning it and soul searching inside of there, it's about developing that mindset and developing that. Oh, it's about self-development. It really, really is. Owning horses and keeping them healthy is about you inside, and whether actually you're strong enough to do that too. But if you're looking after an animal like this, then this is really what it's all about. Okay, so again, under the anatomy and function, this is the same foot. It's not a brilliant photograph. I do apologize. It's a bit fuzzy. This is when I took his shoe off, and this is a year later. I mean, this is the ground talking to this foot, wearing this foot for 6 weeks every time, in between me coming along and still having to trim a little bit off. This is with his foot on the ground, clearly not wearing his foot away. And this is with his foot shod. Bit of a difference. And we see this all the time. I tell you who doesn't see this? Vets, many vets. And that's sad. And they don't see this. They would, if they saw a horse like this and it was having problems, they'd be like, oh, put it in a shoe. Got to understand, you've got to understand that this is a welfare issue. This is not. And there's this massive, massive gap between vet and farrier, between who knows more information. The farrier is the one that's used to dealing with the foot, holding the foot, doing all of that. They manipulate the hoof capsule. They know all about that. The vet's coming in with all their knowledge that they've been taught about anatomy and what they've been taught about laminitis and navicular and all of those things. But there's a problem because there's a massive hole straight down the middle and of lack of knowledge that they don't have, the vets, when they should have, and that the farriers don't have when they should have. And and they don't connect. The two don't connect. So one is constantly asking the other. And again, I'm going to use those lovely two words. It's a little bit like a shit show out there. I'm sorry, but it is. It really is. And there are people like us who are professionals who have been doing this for years and going out and taking a foot like this and getting it to be like this. And yet we are the ones that, for some reason, are the ones that can't be worked with. This, like I say, and I can't say it enough, this is a welfare problem. Look at this foot here. So these are front feet of a horse that is just about to be taken on by one of my clients. At the time, I went to take his shoes off. And this is what I found before I took his shoes off. And the guy who owns him, his excuse was, I know you do things differently, so let's not have that conversation. I know you do things differently to we, but I think the farrier did the right thing here because he had some seedy toe and we cut it out. Like, right. I couldn't even utter the words, why do you think he might have had some seedy toe? Because going back that far down the line, we weren't going to be having that conversation. But this is not the answer. This is not the answer to the problems that horse is facing. A young horse. Again, like I said, with the fad of putting the side clips on the front. All right, so what about alternative approaches? Well, we've got hoof boots. If a horse, an owner is in, and there's millions of them, you've just got to look on, I might say millions of them, of course there's not millions of them, but there's loads of them. They're popping up all over the place now, which is amazing, which basically goes amazing proof that barefoot is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because these hoof boot companies are growing in size and there are new hoof boot companies coming out all the time. So it is amazing. It's a wonderful time to be in the equine world right now. People are really beginning to understand what's going on. So you've got this situation here. I know that Darren, I don't know if Darren's still with us. Darren has got another, he uses some kind of the glue-on Pegasus shoes. I think they are a Pegasus thing, which is kind of like a, forgive me if I'm wrong, if I'm saying this wrong, Darren, but they're like a hybrid between a shoe and a boot. Now, the point, which you can nail on or you can glue on. Now, the point is, we're not here to diss anybody. What we're here to do is to raise that education. We want owners to be more educated as to why these things are happening. We're not against hoof boots at all. Many of our clients have hoof boots because their horses are in a situation or an environment where they can't just quite get them to be that rut crunching horse, but it's down to do with the diet and the management. Or if a horse is transitioning, like in this situation here, and he's sore and he's transitioning from this to this, for the first little while, he might need some hoof boots. But prolonged use of something on a foot is you ignoring your horse's problems. And if your excuse is, and this is tough love, right? And if your excuse is, I can't do anything about it because I'm at a livery yard, maybe you have to ask yourself, what do you do then? Do you move? Oh, well, I can't move because you know, my mates are there, number one. Well, you can meet your mates in the pub anytime. And because I can't find anywhere else to go. Meanwhile, the horse that you love is having problems. This is why we said this is about self-development. This is about you. It's not about your horse. If no humans were involved, Garry and I could go around fixing all the horses. But that's not the problem. It's the humans we have to fix. Darren says most of those boots were invented by Dave McDonald. So you've got Scoot Boots up at the top. Equine Fusion is a Norwegian company. Then you've got the old Macs that were invented by Dave McDonald's. You've got Cavallos there. They come from Canada. You got Woofwear that is just like for abscess and stuff, and that is from Canada. You've got Deltas that aren't them, but they all look similar. There's so many more as well. You've got Flexes, you've got Evos, you've got so many more. Swiss Gallopers. There's absolutely tons of them out there. But the point is, if you're continually using them, then there's a problem that you're not dealing with. So what other choices do we have? Well, natural hoof care. And I don't care whether that word natural freaks people out, but the word is natural because it's all to do with evolution and science, and you can't ignore that. And this is the naturally balanced trim. That's number one. Shoes are not naturally balanced. I think we proved that when we went back and had a look at that, didn't we? That is not a naturally balanced foot. So a naturally balanced trim. Then we have nurturing nutrition. We quite like that, don't we, Garry? We quite like the nurturing nutrition. Because you're nurturing the innate biological systems of the horse that were designed to take in lots and lots and lots of fiber, not bagged feeds, not fiber out of a bag, not 10 tons of supplements. The supplement industry has gone berserk. There are even pharmaceutical companies now who are getting in on the game, and they are producing supplements because they know they've got a name. People will buy them. Lots of pharmaceuticals companies getting in on the game. And why? Because here you've got the drugs and here you've got the supplements. And with the drugs, they have to go through a process. They have to have them researched. You have to spend money doing this bit, and it takes a lot longer to get it to the market. It's a problem. But over this side here, we don't even have to publish any results. We didn't have to even write a paper on it. We just have to basically say that these particular lovely herbs are known in the world to help. It's such an oxymoron. Pharmaceutical company coming along and doing that when all they care about are synthetic drugs, and yet it's so cynical that they go, we use synthetic drugs because those don't work. But just for those who don't like using synthetic drugs, we're losing a massive part of the market here, and we really do need to get in there. So here are our versions of supplements. Here we are. Go and buy them. And people, yes, they put their hands up and they buy. Go and do a search on supplements, horse supplements on Google. Oh my God. There's pages and pages and pages and pages and pages. It's a massive industry because they've recognized it's massive in the human world. And so now it's massive in the horsey world. Actually, so much more so, don't you think, Garry, than in the small animal world? So we don't get the same issue,
yes,
do we?
But much more. Yeah, much more.
So in the small animal world, you've got your dog and your cat. You feed your dog with probably the same dog meat that you always fed it, and the cat probably the same. And that's it, really. You don't go, I'm going to go to the pet store and buy a bunch of supplements for my dog and my cat, or the cow. Or the goat. And yet we are told that we need them for our horses. It is bonkers. The world has lost its head. Becky says, Cavallos are from Carol Herder. They are indeed. Okay. Mindful management. We like that as well. Mindful management. Because all of those three things there, every horse owner should know. And if they don't know it, you're falling short. Because I hate to tell you this, but the professionals that you rely on, they don't know it either. And yet it would be lovely if they did. because I tell you something, there'd be a shift in the amount of what we call welfare and not welfare in this in the world, not just this country, but everywhere in the world. So everybody owner needs to know that. And if you want to know all of that, we teach it, we do. But this isn't a selling. I'm not selling anything on this webinar. I'm not telling you anything about anything I'm going to give you. Well, I might in a minute. All right. We hope you enjoyed that. We hope you really enjoyed that. Remember, stay tuned. Nip on over to schoolhmi.com. If you go on over there, you will find on this website here, there is a little place called webinars. And if you click on that, there are a bunch of free webinars that you can register to, and all the ones that are on demand, and you can still watch those. And this was Garry earlier saying we've got our app. Here we have. This is our app. And this is our online foundation course. And we're going to have some few changes coming up soon that are going to be quite exciting, that hopefully are going to resonate with more people. So this is our online course. Everything we've talked about this evening and so much more we cover in that. It is immense, and it covers even horsemanship and handling. It is great. And for those of you who are, I think I know Renee is going through it at the moment. And yeah, so there we are. You're the best. Many thanks. We love you. Don't disappear. We're just going to stop sharing. Boom. So we're going to give you another couple of minutes. If you've got any questions, whip them into the chat. Renee says, thank you, Lindsay and Garry. You're very welcome. Very, very welcome.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
So it's a big old problem, isn't it, Garry? We have a big old problem in the world.
It is. We knew that this webinar was not going to be quite as entertaining, but it's such a serious subject, isn't it? Yeah. I know we have a bit of a laugh and a joke and everything like that, but this one really has got to hit home that the equine welfare that is out there at the moment, we can do so much better. So it's hard to hear, it's hard for people to take on. But if we don't start owning it, these horses are still going to keep passing away many years before they should. And let's face it, they're our beloved animals, aren't they? So it has to be done. It has to be done.
It does.
There's going to be a lot of people that don't like it, but we've got to put our brave pants on because we're doing it for horse kind.
We are, and
it's got to change.
If we don't do, and it's got to change. Hundreds of years of doing the same thing does not justify why we're doing it now, especially when the top search Google is wear and tear.
Whilst we're talking about hundreds of years of tradition, let's just put in the last few minutes, humans have been on the planet about 200,000 years. Horses in their current form, with their big head, long neck, 4 long legs, their gut system and everything, have been on the planet for 1.5 million years.
In that form.
They were doing really well without us. We need to look back. We need to look back. We can look after these animals. We are intelligent. We just need to get out of that tradition. Get out of that tradition and start asking questions. And some of those questions are going to be difficult.
They are. Renee asked a really good, valuable question, actually, which we didn't mention. She says, are glue-on shoes just as bad as regular, minus the nails, of course? Look, when we put something that is permanently fixed to a horse's foot, how long is that going to go on for? Is that just going to be a short interim thing? You know, are we doing that because we're doing an endurance ride, or are we doing it because the horse is having problems, which we could just deal with a hoof boot, right? That you could just deal with a hoof boot. If the horse is having problems and you want to ride that horse, then you shouldn't be riding it if it's got problems. There's number one. And that's a bit of a tough love thing to say too. So are glue-on shoes is bad? There's no research in terms of the effects of the glue. Nothing substantial. There's nothing really substantial with shoeing either, even though there are hundreds of papers out there. There's really nothing substantial. The nails aren't going in, so woohoo. So we're not having any nails, but we are also changing the way that that horse has its active and passive wear patterns. We're covering up stuff that need to have contact with the ground. We are affecting the feedback mechanisms in the horse's foot. So if it's temporary and it's short term, and we're doing it so that we are doing it because we have a very compromised foot, then it's, in my mind, if you weigh it up, it's got to be better than sticking nails in, right? It's got to be, hasn't it? If you need to do it, but it can only be for the short term. What we need to do is get these horses out of these crutches. And who are they crutches for, really? They're for the human being. And we've got to get these horses out of these crutches so that they can be the most amazing, sure-footed, sound, non-slipping, incredible horses that they can be. It isn't fair. It's not right. And it's a welfare problem. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us. So much for joining us. It's been awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I know so many people are going to go and watch this on demand, and it'll get watched by lots and lots of people, because that's what happens with all our webinars. So I hope you enjoy it if you're watching it live or in the future. Hello to my future self. Hello, Lindsay. Hello, Garry. Hello, future Garry. And we're off.
Hello, Lindsay. Hello, Garry.
I'm going to go. So lovely to have been with you this evening. And we'll see you on our next webinar, which is at the end of October. And I think, I can't remember what that webinar's on right now because I've forgotten. But go and have a look on the website. It will tell you all. All right, folks. Take care now. We love you all. Bye-bye. Bye.